Mhm. Hello, Blair. I was just wondering, this is Bill Leonard, if you could hear me.
Bill, this is Deborah. I can hear you.
Ken Shepro, I can hear you.
Thank you
Lewis,
all.
I can hear you.
Thank you all.
If a board member talks in the forest, is what's that, line about the tree felling in the forest? Does it make a sound?
Now, Ken.
Having had that, I remember the old Barbara Walters interview where she would ask people, if you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be?
Wow. And what kind of tree would you be, Ken? I think you
At
Mighty
this
oak.
point, I would probably be a sequoia.
Oh, okay.
Always endangered by leaping flames, right?
Yes.
Um,
Or a Joshua tree, what are supposedly like 4,000 years old.
Oh, those are so cool. I was in Israel a couple of years ago. They are so cool. Except who'd want to be 4,000 years old? I'm not aging too good myself right now.
No. That was actually a really cool original Star Trek episode about the 4,000-year-old man, and he hated it. He didn't look 4,000 years old, but it was like time to rest.
Yep, all your friends are gone.
Yeah, there was a sad story I read as a kid about the Egyptian pharaoh who was actually 92 when he died. And like, not only were all his friends dead, his friends' kids were dead, and he was just had nobody to talk to.
Yeah, that happens.
All right. Well, on that cheerful note.
Yeah.
Are you doing that on item G? What? Item G on here? Be right with you, folks.
We're starting late, Roger.
I will go over.
Oh, yeah.
Send late, Roger.
Super. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Human Services Committee meeting of Wednesday, July 13th, 2022. Will we please call the roll?
Lewis,
Lewis here.
Allen,
Ellen present. Good morning.
good morning. Bates,
Bates here.
Davis,
Davis here.
Iqbal, Kenyon,
Here.
Hurog, Shepro,
Shepro's present.
Burgess.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay, and just note, I thought I did see Mo in the house here.
You
So,
got
okay.
a sweatshirt.
Mr. Kenyon, can I have a approval of minutes from the
I
June
would like
15th,
to move that
2020?
we unanimously approve the minutes.
Mavis, can we have a second?
Second, please.
Any discussion on those?
Maybe it's just got a
Roll
beer
call?
tea sweatshirt.
Allen,
Here, Blanky.
Ellen, aye.
Bates,
Yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Iqbal, Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Burgess.
Sturgis, yes.
Yes.
Do we have anybody online, Blair, for public comment? Anybody in the
Mr.
audience?
Chairman, Shepro?
Hang on one second, Ken. Teresa, do you have anybody for public comment or? Okay, thank you. Ken?
This is public comment. I don't know what else is planned, but I was saddened to see the email from our executive director about the passing of Sheila McCraven. Those who know, of a certain age and length of service know how hard she worked at that job. And I just wanted to make sure that we made a note of that this morning.
Ken, thank you so very much. That's so appreciated. No easy segue from that one. So monthly financial reports are all on file. Did anybody have any questions on those or need to reach out to anyone? Okay, item 5, Department of Human Services Management. Jamie, if we could highlight these rather than go in depth, if there's anything that's out of tolerance, let us know. My concern on Blue Cross Blue Shield invoices was that we did have a couple of large trend, I believe it was 3 specific incidents where long-term COVID had truly impacted our loss totals. Short of that, I think we were okay on everything else. But we have some other heavy lifting items to do. So as fast as we can cruise through these, I do know that the one of the reports, all of the election staff is on there, which throws that number wildly off.
Right. I'll just go through some highlights. To your point regarding the health insurance, we're actually back on track with that. We had a really good month in May, and we're actually back in the green for the year.
Perfect.
So we're leveling out, and those totals, we put the same amount in every month, but the goal is to be roughly level at the end of the year. So we're right on track for that at this moment. And an update on health insurance. So last month, when we had Mr. Baker here, the committee asked that we kind of give an update on how that's tracking. I will be meeting with him along with Joe Onzik in finance on August 2nd. And that's when we will go through and work on our rate calculations. So I will have rates to pass in August for you.
Again, if we could reiterate on that, last month's discussion on health savings accounts was just that, a discussion. It was not moving or pivoting or trending or anything in that direction. It is just another option that for some specific members of our team might be attractive. And at some point in time, we really owe it to everybody to just, look into that a little bit further. And last month was just dipping our toe in the water and beginning to exchange some information with the marketplace.
Mr.
Right.
Chairman.
Mavis.
So there's been discussion on the news lately of bankruptcies caused by high deductible accounts, health, what do they call it? HD?
High deductible health.
Yes, because people get themselves into terrible debt. And so I appreciate your comment that this is just a comment.
Just conversation. And if you have those articles, I would love to see them. Being in the industry, I have not heard a peep or seen one of those. So I would truly,
It's on the radio, but I can probably.
yeah, let's find that, because I'd be curious. I mean,
But
Bill,
that-
Leonard and I would both be very interested in that.
Because it's kind of these sad stories of people becoming bankrupt because of health matters and medical bills, and it's because of the high deductible.
Yeah, just to comment back to that, because we're on the record. The high deduct, the only, in my perception, the only risk to a family member or an employee in these plans is that they would need to meet their deductible, which in most cases is under $10,000. So if the $10,000 is the risk, I understand that. If you're implying that there was anything greater than that, that's a wrong implication, because the
No.
coverage doesn't change.
No, that's it. $10,000 can put some people into
Okay,
bankruptcy.
and just to be fair, for those individuals that would jump into this type of plan that could experience a loss before they're accumulated, my suggestion is don't jump into these plans if you don't have that money in your personal reserves.
And
That would
yes,
be a poor decision in my,
And I'm saying that these high deductible plans are like putting a casino in the middle of the room. Because
Yeah, I don't-
people are betting, and then desperate people might go, well, $100 premium per month versus a $50 premium per month, you can add your own numbers, looks good today. But then that $10,000 deductible someday after your baby is in the ICU, the NICU for a month, then it's a bet, it's a gamble. People are gambling.
Agree.
with
There should be
these.
no gamble. If you financially don't have those reserves until your savings account is built up to meet your deductible, you should not take out this plan.
That is exactly right.
And we have been nothing but consistent about that in those conversations, truly. Jamie?
Just want to add that the plans we were offering were not that high of a deductible that
Thought they
you
were
might be
5,000,
reading.
right?
I think it was 3,500.
Okay.
Okay,
Also, the county would be contributing to a health savings account. So the most a person would be looking at, even in a worst case situation, I think Mike had that on his presentation, was a couple $1,000s. Which is if they have the PPO, they're already looking at that potential out of pocket for major medical. So ultimately, although the employee pays the first 3,500, the plan pays everything after that point. So it does, in some cases, people have high deductibles and then they have a co-insurance after it. So our plan was designed not to open that extreme amount of liability up to our employees as we did that. But, as Mr. Surges said, this would be an option for employees who have the stability to choose a plan like that.
mhm. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So, and Mavis, though, if you see those articles, I think
Right.
those are invaluable to have on file to share with people that might be trying to make a decision. Here's the decision. You should not do this if you fit in this bucket, but if you're in one of the other buckets, you might want to consider it. So anyhow, okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Shepro.
Yes, Ken.
Yeah, just to maybe put a point on all this discussion, I think your comment really hits the nail on the head, which is when it comes to a lot of insurance decisions, be informed, because what sounds great in the ads about how cheap it is, whether it's auto insurance or any other kind of insurance, I think that a lot of people just don't make good decisions because they don't have the information that they need.
You're hired.
So, Mr. Chairman, yeah,
Ma'am.
lots of information would be.
Right.
the-
And hence the dipping our toe in the water and being, a cascade of information coming in. So.
Is this being asked for by our employees?
No, it's being recommended by our broker as something that has been extremely popular in other government agencies and has been beneficial to the employees. This plan is probably not going to be considerably cheaper than the other plans, but what it does offer is that health savings account that allows an employee who is reasonably healthy to retain that money year over year and roll it. So that's an extra benefit for people that are in a particularly healthy bracket and things like that. So it has its benefits, particularly to certain groups of people. If we do end up offering this as a benefit, we would have our broker offer Zoom meetings to employees that they could join in. They could ask whatever questions they want, and he would be able to present in excellent detail the pros and cons of each plan.
Okay,
And all of our existing plans would still be there. No one
Right,
would be
that was
forced
my
into
point.
this.
Mavis, this is just an additional alternative.
Mhm.
This is not replacing what we have. It's just saying, for those people, we have 1,300 and whatever employees. For those individuals or families that may see this of benefit, we'd like to make this available to you. So,
Okay.
yep. Sorry, Jamie, go ahead.
No problem. The other thing I wanted to point out under the human resources reports was those applicants and staff changes. In the past, we've often taken the election workers off, but I just, it is
There's a ton of
an
them, man.
onboarding, both for HR and for payroll. So this is a considerable amount of work that is done every single election.
Hmm.
It's over 300 election workers, and this is for a primary, so it will actually
Do
be
we
more in a
get to
general.
keep, it's probably not your question, but do we get to keep those same people and reuse them in November? Or is it a fresh batch and we have to retrain them all? How does that work?
As long as they want
typically?
to come back, you'd have to talk to the clerk since they
Okay,
manage
not
that,
fair.
but
Thank
from
you.
experience, Several do come back year after year, some don't. They do only a certain one and then don't. It's really up to the individual who serves as the election judge to determine if they want to come back, but the clerk does encourage people to come back again and again and save them some of that training effort.
Perfect.
And we will leave them onboarded until I think the clerk waits for a year or two of no activity to go by before they actually take them off the list.
Okay.
To try to encourage, keep the paperwork down on ones that are coming back election after election.
Thank you so much. If we can fast forward to Blair, item F is the workers' comp insurance liability claims reports. Could we pull that up? Again, Jamie, I think you're now included in this, but it's always unfortunate that this committee meets the day after the county board meeting, because at the county board meeting, we oftentimes make recommendations or agree to certain settlements that are happening. So on Tuesday, we go, oh my gosh, how much money did we just authorize in claims? And then on Wednesday, I come in and go, oh, look, rose-colored glasses and look at how fine we are. This is the opportunity for us to just kind of put it all back in this perspective on an annualized basis, because I believe that some of the claims yesterday, at least one of them, I thought went all the way back to prior 2020,
It was
2018,
2018, I
2018,
believe.
I thought, yeah.
But you'll be happy to know that all the amounts that were authorized by the board were within reserves, which means those
Perfect.
amounts are already being reported on these reports because they were expected based on the insurance company's analysis of the claim to be that high.
It's almost as if her and I scripted that, isn't it?
I think you do.
You think you're correct. So thank you, Jamie. I appreciate that. Any questions on items A through G?
A through
Deb,
F, we still
and-
need to do G.
I'm sorry, A through F. Anita, Deb, Mark? Ken?
We're good.
Okay, let's move on to item G, which I believe is a heavy lift item. And I'm going to turn this over to Jamie, but if I have this correctly, there is a meeting following this, which is the ad hoc budget committee. One of the reports or one of the recommendations coming through that committee is the equity comparison, if you will. How does Kane County compare to our contemporaries in the surrounding area? And what started off as a conversation has really blossomed into way into the weeds, and I mean deep into the weeds. So not just saying this person and this person and this person in 3 different counties all seemingly have the same job title, but they seemingly all do different tasks and their pay is spread out. And we tried to find a way to equalize that. And if I'm not mistaken, after, and I don't mean to oversimplify this, but after we ran up the flagpole once or twice, another county did a much more in-depth, and we're adopting theirs to supplement ours. Am I even close on that?
Yeah, that is, I would say it's probably
How's
a
that for
little
a
bit.
huge
of-
oversimplification?
I can provide a little more detail.
Go ahead. Thank you.
So back, last year we started talking about doing the business analysis, which really functionally we needed a salary study. And among that, we need to have our jobs graded to give us internal equity. When I say internal equity, I mean that someone doing a job that requires a certain amount of skill and responsibility should get paid on roughly the same scale as someone in another department doing a job that is similar in its requirements, skill, and tasks. To make sure that we don't have people jumping from one department to the next. That's a lot of extra turnover costs for the county, just to have employees moving from one department to another, because they can make the same or more money doing less work in another department. So having internal equity is also really important when you look at equal opportunity employment, and making sure that we can look at our wages and make sure we are paying women and minorities the same as we are paying others for jobs of the same skill and education and experience requirements. So internal equity is really important to reach, and that would require us grading the jobs. And then as we talked about that was the beginning of the business analysis. We moved into some, talking about mandates and all of those things, which are actually, just kind of slowing the process down as far as getting there. what we have here, I had the chairman contact me regarding, as we were looking at budgets in future years and making plans for those, to give an estimate as to what salary equity would cost. So that's what this is, and it's a lot of really good starting work. And we started working on it, comparing McHenry and Lake counties, McHenry being a little smaller and Lake being a little larger, but them being of roughly the better geographic and economic comparison to King County. In the meantime, while we were in the middle of doing that, we did have McHenry County come out with an extremely detailed analysis that they paid a consultant to do, that used a number of area agencies, including Kane County, Will County, Lake County, DuPage County, DeKalb, Winnebago. Really all of your collar counties were included in this study for comparison, as well as some municipalities and school districts in the McHenry County area. I think that that provides a pretty good analysis for our county as well, since it really did look at all of the Northern Illinois collar counties for comparisons. And they did share that study with me, and they have all of their job titles and grades on it. Now, I wanted to go through and kind of get an idea of where our county sat in comparison to that. So I went through, and if there was a job title matched, I used the grade that McHenry County had given it. And if there wasn't, I tried to take a look at some job descriptions and try to make an educated guess. Bear in mind, I had about a day and a half to grade almost 600 jobs. So I have been upfront with everyone that this is not accurate. It is a quick estimate. I would think that maybe I got 3 out of 5 right. First try. To actually grade these jobs would involve human resources sitting down with the department staff, looking at the job description, and then looking at other job descriptions in other departments that are in the same grade, and trying to find the right grade for the job based on the actual duties, because there can be a huge difference in the way the counties are organized, in the way those titles may not cover everything. I think a really good example of that would be like our water resources department, who does not just do water resources, but also environmental resources. So their director of water resources in the county that, you know, in the comparison chart would not be equivalent to our director of water resources here, because of the other things that she does in other areas, including the environmental department. So that would be one that when we sat down and looked at it in detail would certainly be different and would change. So some of these may be higher than they should be, some may be lower. This was just an effort to give an example of how far behind a given department might be in the ranges. It will change. Nobody's actual salary will be determined based on this. This is just for the purpose of providing an estimate for the budget ad hoc committee. But I wanted this committee to be aware, because I do want the next steps to be, if there is a way to, whether we are able to fund this all or in part, I do think it's still important to go through the process of completing the grades on those jobs. And I would like us to take those next steps. And I'd like, you know, the board and the committee to support taking those next steps to get those grades, and then have funding, you know, be a separate issue that we pursue
So-
as we can.
The committee has heard us use the phrase, or at least me use the phrase, you know, master plan it. How do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? This is just a bite. This is just one of the bites that we're taking in this comprehensive view. Some of the other things that Jamie has been juggling while Jamie's team has been juggling while we're doing this is we've asked each department to kind of look at their charter, and that has borne fruit. Realign this committee, you know, this department with this committee, blah, blah, blah. You know, this morning we had a meeting from the at the auditor's request. Something as simple as saying, we have a list, Mr. Kyos was in there from admin as well. Roger was there. We had a listing of vehicles. How tough can it be to keep an accurate list of our vehicles? Well, yeah, you got it. How many vehicles do y'all think we have? It's over 350. Those get changed out 4 or 5 a month, and you just can't take the license plates off of one car and put it on the other car. You actually have VIN numbers and processes through the clerk's office and everything that needs to be done. And we don't have a clear-cut path as to who's in ownership of that. Although by code, it's actually human services with the input of the other departments. But I will openly admit that's probably not running as smooth as it possibly could, And when you look at something as simple as a VIN number, a 17-digit VIN number, and then you start looking at everything else we do, you start finding areas that we can consolidate or streamline or that need some attention. And this was 5 people in a room, and I think we all understood each other very clearly and what needs to be done. And Mr. Kyles and I both said, boy, we just are so happy we have Cracker Jack department heads that'll figure this out amongst themselves and we'll keep
Good
the
staff.
How's
Good
that go?
staff.
Good staff, Chris. And we'll just stay out of that discussion and yay. So what Jamie is showing you, again, little arrays of light, tips of the iceberg, one bite of the elephant, a piece of the puzzle, but this is a significant piece. And I thank you for putting this all together. Can you explain to us a little bit on how this portion may or may not have anything to do with the Safety Act that we're looking at? Is that included in this dynamic or not?
This is not. That is a separate animal that, the judicial partners are going to be looking at as far as if they need additional staff. That's not really related to the current staff. As we bring on new staff, if we do this compensation management, it has a lot of steps. Like you said, it's just a bite. It's a first step. But once you establish the grades, then you have to look at what dollar figure is suitable for that range. We have the study from McHenry County, but Kane County could set their range lower, higher, wider, narrower. That would be a whole nother step for the county to undertake, setting the range for each grade. Once that is done, a compensation policy really should be in place. I think just about every other county has some form of compensation policy where the board outlines the criteria and process as far as cost of living raises, merit-based raises, bonuses, temporary assignment pay, and all of those things. The board should be setting the criteria around those. We don't have any direction.
Each of which we are somewhat struggling with now.
Simply because we have a lack of an established process, and we do not have what I would call in some cases where we may not have a policy around something. We have a very consistent practice. This is somewhere that we don't even have consistent practice to fall back on. It's kind of just been different in each department. And I think everyone's doing great work. It's just each department is doing a different method. And I think it's important for county departments. And again, we're just talking about county departments, not elected offices who will continue to do that themselves. But for county departments, it's important that we have a consistent method that applies to all county departments.
Jamie, thank you so much for all you do. And for those, Blair, could you put that screen back up instead of the?
Mr. Sturgis, if I could please
Madam Chair.
comment on that.
Sure.
You asked about has it to do anything with the Safety Act. The Safety Act is going to require us to hire an additional, what is it, 102, 109 employees.
Madam Chair, I totally appreciate that. My next statement with this was going to be, I personally have a methodology and a workflow that once I see a snapshot in my head, I don't forget those numbers. But I want to make sure that anybody who's looking at these snapshots realizes what they are. This does not include that Safety Act funding or any other part of it. So the numbers that you're looking at here, don't take those to the next committee and go in your head, but Cliff and Jamie said it was $3 million. Then you get to that committee and it's $9 million or something. And so just understand this snapshot does not include that.
And the reason why it was included in the report that is going to be given to the ad hoc budget committee. And this is, I think there's other people on the board who also feels this way. If we're hiring new individuals, whatever those new individuals may be, they'll probably come in at market rate. I don't want any of our current employees not to be at the same level of compensation who have years of experience here with Kane County that are not equal to or greater than the new hires.
So let that sink in, everybody. Anybody that's a business owner or who has been involved in hiring or management, I don't know how you take somebody who's been with you for 20 years, let's just use a number, making $50,000 a year. And then you have to hire somebody new and you bring them down at $70,000 a year because that's market rate. And you've just kick that $50,000 a year, 20-year employee in the face. I don't know how you do that. And each business handles that a little bit differently. But folks, it's knocking on our door right now. This Safety Act is going to require new hires. How do you balance that against the people you have now? And this entire process, I believe, has been cobblestone after cobblestone leading to this. And we can't make these decisions. We can't even have our intelligent conversations without the data, and we're getting there. We're getting there swiftly. But I want everybody to understand the methodology that we've taken to get there. And to some degree, we plagiarized by jumping on board with another study that everybody, that they welcomed us to use.
Did we send them a thank you?
Yeah,
note?
we would like to send.
I've already thanked them.
Yes, I mean, they were really, Jamie as well. We did seek their approval to use that because if you remember, when this first started, we said, let's ask for $30,000 to pull a report together. And then that snowballed into something, a figure, maybe 150,000. And then that wasn't even all inclusive. I think we've done most of it in-house. And I don't think we've spent anywhere near outside. I don't think we've spent anything outside our in-house people near $30,000. Is that,
We haven't spent a dime outside of our regular budget at this time. We haven't spent any of that $30,000 because we've done all of this in-house. And yes, we did, McHenry County was very open with sharing this, and we actually contributed to their study. We did a survey regarding some of our scales and everything that took us about 5 hours to complete. So it was lengthy and detailed, and that's what they sent out. And so when they sent that, they said, hey, we'd be happy to share with you everything we find out if you do this. So
now we've gone from plagiarism to collaboration.
exactly.
How perfect.
Exactly. It's a
How
better word.
perfect. Okay, does anybody have any questions on this data or what we're trying to achieve? Again, this is not completed. Are we okay, Mavis?
So just to make sure I understand this, if we were to go to a market rate, it would cost us $2.3 million.
Yes, that's in the salaries. And then the second line column would be your payroll taxes and benefits on top of it.
Almost $3 million.
2.7-ish, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's what
I
the
got it.
indicators are showing
I
now.
got it, thanks.
Okay. Anybody online with questions there? Don't fall asleep on us. Thank you.
And
No, we're
if I could,
good.
Okay,
if I can just throw in one more comment, in today's news, 9.1% inflation rate for this year. So I'm just letting that settle in.
I think the news has been inundated showing that inflation is just over 8%, while employee salaries are just over 4%. And there is a gap there. I mean, there's a gap there and it's growing right now.
There
So,
was a report this morning.
right, that just came out in the past 24 hours.
9.1.
9.1.
So yeah, yesterday I thought it was 8.7 or something. Okay, before we move on to the next item,
We should have
Madam
a
State,
resolution to allow the treasurer to buy lottery tickets, maybe.
thank you, Mark.
What'd you say?
About buying lottery.
Thank you very much. I know what you're going to say. I actually have to stay for closed session.
Got it.
I brought my laptop so I could work.
Gentlemen, ma'am, okay.
But I'm multitasking, so I appreciate it.
Our state's attorney snuck in, and if she had files that, and it was just for us, I was going to bump her ahead of us, and then, so thank you. Okay. Old business, resolution adopting the employment of family member policy to the Kane County Personnel Handbook. Jamie, are we ready to move forward on that?
We can, to give you some background, we did talk about this last month and there was some question about including romantic relationships
Correct.
and the definition of that. And in looking around at that, it does look like a lot of organizations have a separate policy regarding romantic relationships, separate from whatever family policy that they have. So I did include a draft, just an idea of that to see if that's the direction that the county wanted to go. This draft is primarily taken from our state's attorney's handbook. The language from it is from there. So this is the statement that they have regarding romantic relationships, of course, adjusted for county department versus legal departments. But that would be the recommendation I would go, would be to
So I'm
remove it
clear.
from family relationship, family policy and have its own policy.
So I'm clear, last month's version included language that said romantic relationship.
Yes.
Are we removing that in its entirety.
We have removed that in its entirety from the family members policy that is here. In addition, a couple people pointed out some language as far as we included parents, but not specifically children. I guess if you're a parent, then your child is here. But for clarity, that was added as well. Does not change the meaning. It just is a little bit of
Okay.
clarification in the language. And Dr. Iqbal recommended some changes. None of them are intended, I believe, to change the meaning of the policy, but rather to add clarity. The word individuals at the beginning of the procedure section, where it says individuals shall not participate, he changed that to
Claire,
employees.
can you move down one screen?
He emailed this to me after the packet went out, so I don't have it in the packet.
Got it.
But if you want to go down to where it says guidelines there at the bottom of the screen, the word individuals was changed to employees. And family members was changed to employees who are members of a family.
Okay.
So these are
Great
logistical
job. Good
changes.
catch. Very attorney-ish of you.
Yes, so,
Yeah, just to make it clear.
yes, so.
We appreciate the effort, totally.
So they were basic language changes that he recommended. I don't object to any of them. They're just intended, I believe, to clarify the language.
So the romantic relationship will be in a second document.
That would be the next item on your agenda. I'm not putting it forth for a vote because it hasn't been reviewed by the state's attorney yet, but.
Okay, so on the items, number 7, item A, resolution, Mavis, do I see we have a motion there?
You would need to move it as amended the way with Dr. Iqbal's changes if you wanted to include those, because
Right, right.
those are not in the
Mavis,
one
that's
that's here.
as amended, correct? And could I have a second? Mr. Kenyon
Yeah.
or Mr. Iqbal, please? That'd be more appropriate, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do we have to move and vote on the amendment first and then as amended?
No, we're doing it
No.
as amended.
We do it on the fly.
No, we're doing it as amended.
No,
Okay.
correct.
Yes.
I have a.
Any
question.
discussion on that, Madam Chair?
Thank you very much.
That was a big hand in the air.
Yeah,
That
I
was a
got, I got
huge- Look
issues.
at that.
So what happens if you have an extended family and someone applies for a position that you have no knowledge of and you're a current employee? And it says here very clearly that to the extent that you know, you should disclose this. But what if you simply do not know?
And You've answered your own
it-
question.
And
Yeah.
it comes back to bite you. And then what happens if there is a reference to, you're at a family gathering and you know of a position that's in the county because you happen to be looking, you just happen to be aware, and you say, hey, second cousin, I know that you're interested in position A. Why don't you consider looking at that? Is that undue influence?
Jamie, I'm going to let you, how would you?
Certainly, telling people about open positions with the county is welcome and not in any way, shape or form controlled by this policy. So spreading the word is something I think we encourage people to
Oh,
do.
Absolutely.
And this doesn't get into the depth of second cousins and distant family. It's meant to
But
be
it could
closer
be,
family.
it could be an uncle, it could be a
Correct.
niece.
And there's people who don't know their cousins and don't ever interact with them, which is why it says to the extent an employee is aware and has any knowledge. So I would say if you haven't seen your cousin in 30 years and you find out later, someone says, did you know your cousin's working for this department? If they're in, you'd say, oh, I didn't know. And if you haven't seen them in 30 years, I think you're probably pretty well supported in not knowing they worked in another department. I think if your first cousin works for you, you will know.
Oh, well, we're talking about.
And Madam Chair, I think that the
was
protocol,
talking
and
about
Roger,
you.
I'll get to you in a second, but I think the protocol would be at the point in time where an employee finds out that a close relative has just acquired a job and that they are unaware of. I think it's simply making human services aware of the relationship at that minute in time. And I mean, I don't.
But
I mean,
isn't it also the responsibility of the applicant to make that aware?
But what if the applicant doesn't know?
And it is on the application. So if someone is aware, then they put that on there.
So it is the responsibility of the applicant to put that on, but is it then also, according to this, the responsibility of the current employee?
Once they're aware, I think there is a responsibility.
They're aware, yes. If
Oh.
they're aware, once they become aware, and that's why it says to the extent they're aware, you can't obviously make someone aware, tell someone about something you don't yourself know about. And if I don't think it would have a problem with it coming back to bite somebody. If you haven't seen somebody and, you don't have a relationship with them, yet they happen to be a blood relative, I don't believe you would have any interactions with that employee to the point where it would be interfering with any of these guidelines, any of these, that you would not be participating in the hiring decision if you did not know that the
Yeah,
person had.
Corinne, I certainly appreciate what you're saying, but I don't think we can legislate everything. I mean, I
So-
think
Comment,
this,
Shepro?
hang on, Roger's in front of you, Ken. Let Corinne.
Can
Okay.
I just,
Can you-
Mr. Shepherd, can I just finish and then I'll ask for legal opinion since we've got attorneys on here? Could the sentence read, to the extent a current or potential employee may be aware, not is aware, may be aware, and has knowledge of a family member's application?
I'm getting a shake of the head from the state's attorney. Is it Dawn? Feel free. Microphone right there. On the fly.
Oh, and she's got her jacket on, watch
Yeah,
out.
well, I didn't want to be unprofessional, so Assistant State's Attorney Dawn Truce. That leaves to ambiguity, may, because what you want to say is if they are aware, because may, well, if they are aware. they
Stop.
should
Good
report
answer.
it.
Love that answer. Stop. Perfect.
All right.
I mean,
then
and
let's
Madam Chair,
change-
we can always refine this.
Let's
Like,
change
if-
is to are aware, not is aware, but are aware.
I
And
don't know
if-
that there's a difference.
You would have to
No.
make it plural. You'd have to say to the extent employees are aware would be fine if that's,
Yeah, I think
Easier.
that intent is okay.
I think it's just the plural versus the.
Roger,
singular.
did you have a comment before Ken?
I would defer to Ken. if-
Ken, go ahead, please.
Yeah, with policies like this, you can almost always come up with some set of facts that if you took an extreme position, is going to result in it going astray. But I think the issue is that do you give this a reasonable and practical construction? And as Mr. Chairman, you just alluded to, you can usually find something that would say, well, what if this happened? What if my third cousin, this, that, or the other? And as you said, you cannot legislate for every possible eventuality. But the question that I guess I was going to follow up before the specific thing is that my impression, but I might be wrong, is that this is intended to be a clarification of what we already think is the policy, and not that if this is adopted, there would be some radical impact on our current employees or potential hires.
Correct. This is a housekeeping update that I'm sure 5-10 years from now, somebody will laugh at us and say it should be even more stringent or something.
But the intent, I think, is simply to deal with potential ambiguities and attempt to make as clear as we can what the policy has always been.
Correct. Thank you. Roger?
I think the concern that I've seen from myself and others in our office is when you describe employees shall not participate in. And if you get referrals from other departments, resumes, and they say, hey, you should talk to this person. They know a lot about, what you're doing. So participate in, does that exclude maybe explicitly
It's a great question. Roger. I
referrals
don't- I
or
don't know that I have any-
recommendations, to, hey, this is a candidate. So if I have staff in IT that know someone that would like to be a nurse in the health department, and we say, hey, well, send your resume to HR, is that participating in?
Roger, that is a great question that I did not contemplate.
So I'd like
That
to
was
see an
certainly not the
exclusion for
intent.
that.
The intention of this is to not extinguish the morale and the goodwill that an employee brings to the community around him. And if that phrase does, James, what's your thought there?
I think I can clarify in that particular, the one that says participate, what you're not allowed to participate is a decision. So you can participate in anything else, but you cannot participate in the decision. So the decision making has to be someone who is not related. And I believe that's liberal enough not to quash, hey, here's a resume for my sister. She's a nurse and I think she's a great nurse. You certainly can give a reference, you can give a referral, but you cannot participate in the decision.
Shepro, suggestion?
Yes, sir.
If that's the case, Jamie or anybody, if you added to the participation and just say participation in the decision.
It does say, I mean, it does say decision. It's just employment, compensation, disciplinary, or promotion are all descriptions of decision, but it does say, you know, the full sentence says employees shall not participate in any employment, compensation, disciplinary, reward, or promotion decision of any employee. So it is referring specifically to the decision.
I'm okay with trying this on for a while. So it might not be perfect, but Roger, does that, is that okay to your?
I'm just happy that it's on the record and in the minutes that participating in a referral for any employee in the county is not something that would be disciplinary action.
Perfect.
Or simply referring somebody to another department or office.
No, I
Have
think we
that in the
actually
minutes.
encourage referrals. I
Yes.
think referrals are a wonderful thing. And as the very first paragraph states, it's a policy of the county to hire the best available individual for our positions. And if there is a referral available for a wonderful employee, we absolutely want to hire them.
Perfect. Did we call the roll?
Yes, let's call it. I'm in support of the version that we have in front of us.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon, Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Burgess.
Surges, yes.
Passed.
Old business item B, personal relationships policy, draft attached. If everybody could just review that, yeah, I think we've just discussed that enough.
Yeah, if that's something that this committee would like to pursue, then I would go ahead and send what I have out to the state's attorney to vet the draft.
I think you have consensus on it. Mo?
Yeah, I have a concern about this personal relationship policy. I think
Claire, can you pull that up? Do you have that?
I believe it is proper thing for the state attorney's office to have this policy, but not for the general staff. I think we should just simply drop it, and it should not have any policy about the romantic relationship. We have ways to discipline an employee if the work is not being done, if they're not productive, they're causing some problem, but not bring in or disclose or get permission from the head whether their relationship is proper or not. The Constitution allows us to have a right of association. People work here only for 40 hours, and there are 128 hours. They can do anything they want, as long as it doesn't affect their work or our image. And that's all we should do.
Could we have these discussions offline while asking the state's attorney's office to review this and bring this back next month? We could always vote no and not move it on. But I would love to challenge you with a couple of situations that I'm aware of here and just ask your feelings and see if you have the same, if given that knowledge, if you would have the same feeling. And if you do, that's super. I don't, that's all right. But would anybody else object to just asking this? All we're doing is asking the state's attorney to review it.
That's an excellent suggestion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and Mo, let's spend some time on that. And because maybe this is just a waste of time, but let me give you a couple of things and then tell me how we might be already handling those.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, thanks. Jamie, do you have what you need on that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Item C, County Code 248. I'm going to let you go ahead and comment there.
That was for you. That one's
Super
yours.
duper. So County Code 248, the bottom line is we just don't have everything in. Is that still correct?
Yes, there's a few departments who haven't sent us their feedback. I think when this does get evaluated, I think it's important to know what this committee would like to review in this. I think, we're reviewing the feedback from the individual committees, but I think there were some other drafts on the table regarding, additional committees defining, different types of committees, possibly adding a committee. I don't know if that's something this committee is supposed to be reviewing or if that's supposed to be handled by executive, since this was kind of sent from executive. Also, there are places where some of the feedback we have gotten overlaps a little, where maybe two different committees have made claim on the same department or the same activity. Someone needs to vet that and find the best way. I don't know if you want this sent to the state's attorney for an opinion, or how you want to proceed
This is,
with those cases where they overlap or need some clarification.
this is quickly becoming the, I know what it says, but this is the way we do it, discussion. And just because this is the way we do it, okay, maybe we need to update a code to reflect that change. Or maybe we really don't want it done that way, and we're going to ask you to do it the way it was written. And that's what I'm seeing, but everybody's embraced this with open arms, except for those who haven't participated. And Madam Chair, I have to be honest, we've asked now 2 and 3 months, and if we're not getting, if we're not getting input from a department, I don't know the correct way to handle that, but come on, enough's enough. We've asked politely, it's been 3 months, get us what you need, and I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but maybe if Jamie and Madam Chair could work together and apply a little pressure there, that would be great. Is that fair? Does that?
Absolutely. And I don't know how you want me to handle, or if you just want me to present everything, how it's received, or what way you would like me to give you the information when there might be some overlap. You certainly aren't going to be, what I'm saying is
For
you're not
those
going to be able to
departments that
adopt everything
aren't-
as it is.
So when we find these and the two departments meet, if it's not worked out, I would bring that back to this committee.
Okay.
If they work it out on their own, hallelujah, great. But for instance, this morning, we either have to go left or right, and that one is not more correct than the other. Accurate, Chris? We just need to clean it up, which way you want to go. I don't think it matters, just we should clean up the code so it's not ambiguous. And I think that's what we're seeing in many of these. But for those that haven't even turned them in, moving Jake Zimmerman's VA from this committee to the other committee was just a housekeeping.
That was already like that. He was here probably in error. I don't know when his committee ended up here, but was actually always in public service.
Correct. So how many more things are there that weren't designed like this? So again, change the code to correct it, accurately reflect it, or change the way we're doing it to the way it's supposed to be done. It's really black and white. We just need everybody to participate in the process. And I'm very pleased with the way it's going. So just for what that's worth. Resolution item D, resolution amending the disciplinary guidelines in the Kane County Personnel Policy Handbook.
This was up last month
Let's
too
say,
and held
do we have a
over.
motion?
Oh, yeah, it moved.
Well, he'll move and I'll.
Dr.
second.
Iqbal first,
I'll second.
Mr. Kenyon second. Discussion, Jamie, go ahead.
We reviewed this last committee and discussed last committee as well. This is an update to the disciplinary policy. It keeps the same policy and practice designed to cover the instances when a department head would be the subject of disciplinary action and make sure those roles are clearly defined in our process.
Does anybody have any comment on that?
Have all the department heads have,
Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, excuse me, have all the department heads have input on this?
I know the state's attorney, like I said, we didn't change our disciplinary policy. We just defined the roles such that when the department head is the subject of the disciplinary action, who would serve the supervisor role. And that is in here changed to the chair of the standing committee in consultation with the county board chair. Just to make sure we've defined, so it's not a change in the disciplinary policy or steps, but rather defining the roles when those, when the department head is the subject.
Making
of
sure
it.
that sins of the past have a clear path in the future.
Yes.
So, yes.
Mr. Chairman, Alan,
Yes, ma'am. Deb.
I just wanted to say that having lived through this, I really appreciate the clarity and the changes. I think from my experience, this is workable and better.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Thank you so much, Deb. We go ahead and call roll.
Allen,
Alan, aye.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sturgis, yes. Item number 8, new business resolution approving the 2023 holiday schedule for Kane County offices.
I would move it.
Mr. Kenyon moves, Ms. Bates seconds. Any discussion on this housekeeping item? Please call the roll.
Allen,
2 days.
Alan, I.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Louis, yes.
Burgess.
Burgess, yes.
Pass.
Motion for reports to be placed on file.
Mr. Chairman, before we move on to the,
Yes.
could we, under the new business, I would suggest that we have this ethics ordinance, which has been done by the attorney, the state attorney's office, and it's ready to go, so might as well.
Oh, speak into your microphone, would you?
Okay, yeah, on the ethics, we have ethics ordinance, which has been reviewed by the state attorney's office, and it is ready to be considered and voted on. So I
Okay,
suggest.
Did that not make it back onto?
I'm not aware of it. If it's ready, I haven't been sent a copy.
I
wasn't
don't-
aware.
Mo, if that's, seriously, if that's ready, I don't know that we've seen it.
I've not seen it.
I think because Jamie will put together agenda, send it to me for approval. I don't believe she's received that.
No, it's not on the agenda, but the ordinance has been reviewed, so it should be put on the agenda next time. And
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah, we can make that note. Thank you so much. Mr. Kenyon, motion to place reports on file.
Alan,
Alan
second.
seconds. Any discussion on the reports?
Love the
Alan.
report.
Alan, I.
Bates,
Aye.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Louis, yes.
Burgess.
Surges, yes. All right, we have a non-agenda item that we were debating moving to executive session or not. And I'm not sure where to go with this, so I'm just going to open it up for discussion. There is ongoing conversations regarding temporary assignment pay versus bonuses in conjunction with the notion of available money to department heads because of vacancy or because of surplus, and how that money is available at the discretion of the department head to go ahead and make payments, if you will. A department has come forward and said, hey, listen, we'd like to give $1,000 bonus to every one of our employees. And because we can, and I'm not sure that because we can is something that sits well with me. I think it needs to be I think the intention needs to be because there's a vacancy and that created additional funds, or there was surplus in the budget, which created additional funds. But then it comes back to me saying the bonuses are given because of temporary assignment pay or hardship or taking on additional responsibilities? Or is it truly just some form of a bonus, which is based on what? Performance, which is based on longevity, which is based on, and at some point from the chair that I sit in, from my perch, I don't know that I see this being applied consistently across the organization. I understand that the countywide offices have their own internal controls that they can do and govern their respective organizations. But within the county board departments, I'm wondering if we have a consistent message that goes across there. And I wanted to open that up to conversation. Jamie does not agree that this is something that should be an executive session. Michelle Neerman gave me a little latitude and said, yes, you can discuss this as an executive session. The cool thing about being a chair is it's not my world. So I'm going to turn to the committee and say, if we'd like to entertain this discussion, if you'd like to do it, in closed session, if you'd like to just talk about it, if you'd if you'd like to not talk about it at all, that's okay as well.
Well,
Comment, Shepro?
Hang on, Mavis first.
because this is not discussing any particular person or employee, that seems to me like it could be discussed in open session.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I would also add, since I have the floor, that retention could be a reason for this, not just because we can, but because employee retention is so important right now. And if we have an extra $1,000, that could be the purpose.
Mavis, from the state's attorney's office, if you're discussing lump sums for specific employees based on merit or conduct, we would recommend asking for a motion for reason number one. Reason number one being appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees.
Are we discussing lump sums for particular employees or just lump sums for general? Well, let's go into closed session if it's.
Comment, Shepro.
Shepro?
We go into closed session.
The exception is very clear. As is pointed out, it is specific employees. You cannot discuss an overall policy in closed session unless it might relate to an existing collective bargaining agreement. And you can't say that these specific employees are everybody. The Attorney General has already said that doesn't fly. From what I understand, and I agree with the chairman that this is the only consistent policy that I can see here is that as a department, you don't send any money back if you can hand it out at the end of the year. But this is not an appropriate topic, as I understand it, for any closed session unless you are talking about a bonus to a specific employee.
Okay, thank you.
Agreed, agreed.
Okay, there's 1 for, 1 against. Mo, what, as an attorney, what would your
It should be discussed in open session.
Agreed.
open session? Is that 2 out of 3? Do we have consensus there?
Withdraw my motion.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Maven. And again, just, yeah, so this is where we're at. We have a department head that's come forward and said, we have extra money, to which I asked Jamie, where did the extra money come from? And it was said, we have the money from vacancies or surplus, and that the county code allows me as a department head to give that out, me, not meaning Cliff, me being that department head, to give that money out as bonuses to my employees, to which I asked, was that temporary assignment pay? And they said, no, it's because I have the privilege of doing that because I have leftover money in my budget. And I'm just wondering, as a collective, if that, even though that's what the code says, is that truly what the intent was when we did it? And I might look at Mr. Kenyon and Mr. Davist and you know, Deb Allen and some of the folks that have been around, you know, Ken, is this something that we've always done? Is this something that was just new because of COVID? Is this something that's new because of the employment situation that we find post-COVID? Or is this something just brand new because there was some extra money that was infused and we have it? Roger, go ahead.
So being the department head that made the request.
I have been very clear as to not
So
point that out at all.
The resolution, which was in 2022, is resolution 22-52. It was set up regarding the money that is the residual from having vacancies and having your staff take on all the responsibilities of those vacancies. And it was deemed that if you had the money from taking on those responsibilities and holding the vacancies, that you could do a lump sum payment based on those people assuming all of the additional work. And it was a way to address the fact that they're doing all of this work in lieu of people we can't find and hire. So we have watched from the sidelines as people have gone through COVID and received lump sum payments from various offices and departments without any consideration for the IT department, or I think for the building management department. We've had vacancies. We've had vacancies for 6 months. At our mid-year projection for financials, we looked at how much money we had from the vacancies, and we determined that sharing the burden across all of our staff, we could afford to pay a lump sum one-time payment for all of the additional work that was generated from those vacancies. So we brought this up to Ms. Lobrillo and others to say we would like to look at doing this. It's nothing that we have done. It's not past tense, but it is something that is codified. It's in the resolutions. It says that based on having those vacancies and the assignment of other work to other people, that you can do this. So, you know,
Let me ask a generic question. When you use the term, when we use the term vacancies, is that is a vacancy, and the answer might be yes to both questions. Is the vacancy because somebody left our employ and we didn't hire their replacement? Or is the vacancy, we really want an extra position that we never filled from the get-go?
Maybe both.
And it could be
It's all
both.
the above.
I think we'd take employees that are qualified any day if we have the position. We would gladly welcome them in. I think that's, you know, the challenge with turnover is you see people go out and you try to hire people in at the same rates. It's more and more difficult to bring people in at, you know, let's say $20 to $25 an hour for work that is being, you know, compensated higher elsewhere. So you have vacancies that linger for months while you're trying to find somebody that would fill that job. So the resolution was originally set up at the same time that they were doing a lot of the other lump sum payments related to COVID, but that was something that we stayed away from because at the time it was such a volatile condition. Everybody was very tense about it. That at the time, the committee and the county board deferred this decision and said it was the department head's choice. And they decided they didn't want to give a one-time payment or percentage increase to the department head, but that the department head was perfectly within their authority to do the
I remember.
adjustments.
And please, I am not trying to
So
make this.
those are the arguments. though.
Yeah, I'm not trying to make this confrontational in
Oh,
any way.
absolutely.
I'm trying to make sure that if a member of the public challenged us, we would have a way to fall back and say,
Yep.
this is the policy and this is why. So Jamie, if you were to look at vacancy as a definition, what is your definition? And do you have a way to substantiate a report that says this was the vacancy, this was not the vacancy, and yes, the money's there and we never have to worry about somebody looking over our back. We're all good.
When the resolution that Mr. Fonstock referenced came about, it came actually originally from finance, and then finance had asked us to review. When it was brought to me, it was brought under the terms of this is to, memorialize some existing practices, and that it was intended to state that, for example, if you have a vacancy come up, that you can then say, okay, I'm going to assign this job to such and such person. And since that person might be salaried and not receive any overtime pay, but have to put in considerably more time to complete those tasks, that salary that was not being spent on the employee who's no longer there, that salary could be assigned either in the form of temporary assignment pay or into a lump sum to that individual to cover those specific tasks. And that is something that we do. We assign temporary assignment pay to people, or that the money could be used to pay overtime costs for an hourly employee who took on extra tasks and needed to work overtime. But that it was for that's what it was written for. And I was told it wasn't to add any new practices or policies, but rather to permit them to do that or to reorganize after that vacancy and use that money as long as they don't change their total annualized salary. So that's what it was written for. It doesn't really address one way or another the idea of bonuses paid to everyone in a general sense. I think rather than based on the actual distribution of duties of the vacancy. As far as checking to see if there's vacancies, we don't currently have a good system for that, for me to check that. We just pretty much take the word for it of department heads. We can look at terminations and see when terminations happen to see if there's a vacancy. And we can look at the job board to see if we have a job posting. So if you had a job posting in a certain class of employees, then other employees in that class may be picking up the work from not having enough people in that group. So those would be the two ways that I could check for a vacancy, was a termination. So I think when this came about, my question was, certainly, like Mr. Fonstock said, our wages are behind as evidenced by the equity report we put out. And I think everybody is absolutely deserving of, I think that's without question. I think it's just a matter of how we want, since this is a fairly new practice, how the board wants that documented. We had talked about if it's necessary to write an individual form for these people, or if we can memo their file about it, or if we need to document who the vacancy is or not, or anything like that. So I think it's just a matter of, from a procedural standpoint, making sure that it's documented the way and carried out in a way that is intended by the board. So that's kind of what the question was, like, how do we want to document it and what's the approval process? Do you want this to go to a standing committee or human services, or do you want just the department head to do it? What approval process do you want in place for that? So, human resources, do your compliance, make sure that whatever process you guys want is what's carried out.
Yeah, Roger, 1 second. Anita, I'm so sorry. I had my laptop open and I did not see your hand up.
Oh, no, that's fine. I just had a quick question about this situation. Are these salaried employees that would be getting this $1,000 bonus, or are these hourly employees that are already getting compensated by time and a half?
So we do have both, but the majority of our employees are salaried. So it would be for salaried workers taking on additional responsibility. And there are a handful of people that are working hourly. They're not in a bargaining agreement. And we typically do not ask them to work overtime. We hold a pretty standard schedule for hourly people.
Ken, Mark, Mike, Deb?
Yeah, Shepro comment.
Yeah, what do you guys remember from days gone by, if you will?
Shepro.
Shepro.
All right. The question you asked at the outset is, my view is that this issue originated long ago in the independent elected officials who were using money to give, in many cases, bonuses, sometimes salary increases, but usually bonuses, because they had the authority to do that. I think what accelerated that process and made it more on people's radar screen was in fact the pandemic, where you suddenly had some departments that had vacancies for various reasons. But to the point that I think Rogers was alluding to, is that at that point, when it began to spread to, shall we say, the county board departments, you began to have a problem that when you use the policy as it appeared to be written down, different departments had different budget situations. And for example, if Department A had 25% vacancies because of any number of reasons, they had a lot more money in their budget than, say, if IT also had people that were doing extra work, but maybe they didn't really have any money left in their budget. And the idea that the vacancies created a kind of slush fund with which you could dip into and hand out bonuses. There's no uniformity, even if there's a uniformity in policy, there's not a uniformity in resources to do that. And I think that has contributed to the concern that some departments have money to do that and other departments don't. And as an employee, whether you're going to get that extra compensation doesn't necessarily have to do with the work you're doing, but whether there's money left over in your budget.
Yeah, Ken, the uniformity is the item that I'm most looking
and
for.
I think that's the problem. And I don't think, the financial policies that we have aren't really part of the county code. They're separate. It's not clear that they are anything other than suggestions in terms of their actual impact. But I think that we do not have an actual definable policy now that ensures the uniformity and the equity that I think you have alluded to and that I think we have to have.
Anybody else comment?
Davis,
Mike?
just kind of,
Let's go Kenyon, then Davis.
My question is, does this result in employees having to work through their lunch hour or having to come in earlier or work later? You know, I have friends that used to work in the industry, let's say, one of them was General Mills. They had tremendous overtime, and they thought it was cheaper to pay overtime than to hire new employees with all the benefits.
Roger, could I ask a
Are they
naive
working,
question?
are they working extra hours, or are they just finally working up to their potential?
Roger, naive question.
All of the above.
Are salaried employees with us, are exempt salaried employees, do they get overtime?
No,
Okay, so I
by
mean,
definition and by practice, no.
No,
absolutely
okay.
I
not.
understand that, but
Okay.
that's,
Oh.
you know, the one thing you think
Yeah.
about, let's say the school system.
So,
sure,
So
sure.
what
No.
do? They have warehouses full of stuff because they don't want to send the money back. We have computers and books and desks in Chicago school system. They don't want to send the money back to the top and reuse it.
I
So
got it.
that's what I'm afraid
I
of.
understand. Mark?
well, it's been helter-skelter in the past. There's, payments have been made or, and called bonuses or what have you. But what I like about this one is that it veers away from it's just a gift. It's a director handing out, gifts, that kind of thing. If it is truly based on vacancies and that can be quantified and tracked and, then you have the ability to answer the public for one, and a way to measure this, because the vacancy, as Roger has presented it, has resulted in extra work being completed by those that are still there. Again, all measurable, quantifiable, and it gives you the basis of a policy that holds up for any department.
Mark, listen, as far as I'm concerned, is if he's not going over his budget amount, that's up to him as a department head to best do that. I just want to make sure that we are consistent across those departments on that ability to make that happen.
Well, I think the key is that word is the vacancy part. Maybe another department says, well, I don't have it. Well, did you have vacancies? Because if you had vacancies and, those salaries or hourly wages were not paid, then you should have that money in your budget. But if you didn't suffer vacancies in your staff, then no, you don't have the same situation. It won't always be equal from one department to the next. But that's what I like about this model, is that it's based on something that is measurable.
Right, we got a bunch of hands up. We want to give this just another couple minutes. Roger?
yes.
Squirming there? Yeah.
Just to be accurate to the record, the amount of money available from vacancies is calculated. It's based on 26 pay periods. Every pay period we balance out, and we can tell you how much we spend per pay period based on the number of positions that we have. At 6 months, we report to finance all of our line items where we're at in the fiscal year, and you see the percentages in the financial reports. But what you would see is that we have been underspending on our payroll because of the vacancies. So there's a financial report and specific numbers about how much we have underspent because of the vacancies, and that is where we're deriving the number that we feel is available and within our budget to do this. So
And again,
it's not
the-
arbitrary.
The vacancy definition is somebody that worked for you and left and you
Yes.
spread the workload out, or somebody you had anticipated bringing on but never made the hire?
Both.
Okay. Mo? Sorry, Mavis, Mo first.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you. It has been a great discussion. I think everyone brought excellent ideas. And starting from Jamie, my suggestion is to have a policy, written policy on this one. I think the definition of vacancy is a good one. A person who leaves, we should evaluate really we need to refill that vacancy or not. Maybe the department doesn't need it. Everybody is not 100% occupied with the work. The position could be eliminated. On the other hand, there's a department, which is a growing department. They have more and more work. So that not only is you need to fill the vacancy, but add more. Yesterday, we had a line item from the state attorney's office who requires 7 people for the reason cybercrime by the children. Okay, it's a new idea, but at the same time, what no one considered was the time that the children are doing cyber crimes, they are not doing non-cyber crimes, and that's a reduction there. So
What was that
similar
last, would you clarify that last statement, please, Mo?
about,
Who's doing the cyber crimes?
okay, there was an item yesterday in which state attorneys requested 7 new people should be hired, attorneys, investigators, so forth. And the reason was the children are doing more cyber crimes.
Not the
Okay,
adults,
Hmm?
not the adults.
children. Okay.
Children, yeah.
And I think Mo's point is,
And
If they
my
don't
point
need
is
all
that when the
7,
children are
they
doing
would be
cyber
released
crimes,
someplace else?
they are not doing the traditional crimes.
Okay.
But that part was not considered.
Children.
So we had to pay and hire 7.
The kids.
Oh, it's against.
People are predators.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Because my example might be if we had an employee that had to pump the water, to help pump the well to get the water out. And now the new thing is you just turn the spigot and the water comes right out. Do we need that old employee anymore?
Okay,
Sort of
all right.
thing.
Exactly,
And I
something,
don't,
yeah.
and
I-
that doesn't apply to all departments, but it certainly does to some. And again, I don't have an answer.
No, I was next.
Okay,
You talked twice. Oh, go ahead.
I'll let you two
No,
duke that
that
one
was a
out.
question. That was a clarification. Okay, I want to say that, Mr. Chair, I honor and respect your respect for the past. And I think we have new situations here, so we have to be ready to blaze a new trail. We have to be looking towards the future, not just the past. I can see that these vacancies are obviously, especially in IT, because I worked at Bell Labs for 20 years. I can see that vacancies in IT are causing stress and extra work on our IT employees. And I can see that when we ask for uniformity, that is not right. Because if IT has more vacancies, then let's use the health department, which is probably a terrible example. But if IT has more vacancies, those employees are under more stress and duress to get the job done. I mean, we are hammering on our IT employees every
Who do an excellent
minute,
job.
day
There's
and-
no
day and
question.
night. So where uniformity, when you first said that, I thought, yes, that's got to be the right path. I don't think it is.
So
We
Mavis,
don't-
and we're going to go to Mr. Kyos, then Ms. Gums, and then we'll close this for this
Okay.
discussion right now. But Mavis, if I can just make this statement, what I'm most concerned about is the process of saying, Jamie just received the request, and she's wondering, should I sign it or not sign it? Because I don't have a policy that authorizes me to do so.
We do need a policy.
And it's really not more difficult than that, and that's what the conversation is about. And in this particular case, I don't have any problem doing that and moving this forward right now. But ultimately, this is not a scenario that I want to linger. What just happened in the past year or two and in the employment arena that we have that exists today may not exist 3 years from now. And I don't want to create a situation that somebody looks later on and says, what was that all about? Well, we'll pivot and we'll make a change later if we need to. But for right now, she needs to do a job. We have a discussion. I don't have anything to fall back on. Then this is where we should debate this and have this conversation. So, and it is nothing, you're just the poster child for this and you know it. And I'm sorry, Roger, but I mean, if it was somebody else, they'd be sitting there. I don't know. And I invited you to come and, Chris, and then Michelle.
Yeah, I think we're going around here a little bit, but I think we do have a policy, as I understand it. Didn't Mr. Fonstock mention that we, a year ago, voted to allow we've established a policy. We voted on it. We passed it. So we do have a policy. I think it's dangerous to treat this as a monolith. Like Ms. Bates said, I think that it's department by department because there are specific emergencies and things that go on, and IT is a perfect example. Nobody's like IT and building management. Nothing's like building management. Nothing's like health department. We put a lot of faith in our, and rightly so, because they're very talented individuals, with our department heads. to handle their department the way they see fit within the rules that we provide. And I think that that's the kind of thing we can't decide. We can't decide, oh, well, that employee, we don't need to have that employee. As a board, I mean,
It's not our role.
not our role. That's the department chair. If we don't like what the department chair is doing, we switch department chairs. But they should be allowed their leeway to handle their department the best way they can under the circumstances. And we've given them that money to do that. Let them do it. And then I would caution against using analogies like comparing us to the Chicago school district warehouses full of stuff, because I think that may be just a little bit of a false thing. We don't have employees stacked in closets anywhere and waiting for them to just pay them money.
Employees stacked in closets.
Well, that's a bad analogy.
Yeah,
So
no,
I'm
I
just
think that's a
pointing that
great
out. So
analogy.
Chris,
that's it.
I agree with,
Analogy.
I agree with,
Discussion necessary, I think, but
I agree with most everything you said, but I don't ever want to be in a situation where people, I don't want to create a culture where we can't ask questions. And I don't want to say that just because we have a policy, that the policy still is right. We should be
Right.
able to review that policy, because what we did during COVID may not be appropriate for the future. And that's all this conversation is.
Right, yeah.
So- And I appreciate everybody, first off,
Mr.
being ladies and gentlemen.
On stock asking in the first place, rather
Yeah.
than just doing it.
I appreciate everybody being ladies and gentlemen on this. I appreciate everybody, trying to bring the best foot forward, and because that's what we're supposed to do. Michelle, you have your hand up. I apologize.
Thank you for letting me, pardon me, letting me interrupt here. I just wanted to, the great conversation, super important to have. Mr. Kenyon said something that I just want to address briefly, and that is, if you have a division that is so understaffed that they're working mandatory overtime, and we do have those, coming from a place that was requiring me to mandated work, have 80 hours a week, because it was cheaper to pay me double time than to hire somebody else. That is a broad conversation and something that was abused. And I think that should be part of this conversation as well. I'm not suggesting anyone is doing that, but that should be in the back of your mind, because it is in fact something that folks do.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. Jamie, and then we'll move on.
I just wanted to add that I think that providing extra payment to people who are taking on additional duties during a vacancy is important, particularly in your salaried staff, in which you have no other way to compensate them for taking on something additional and really being that team player. It is important to be able to do that. And in bringing this up as a question, I think a lot of it goes to making sure we have a clear set of guidelines as far as how we want this documented. I think there's a lot of good potential in this, and I think that was the intent when this was passed originally, and just making sure that we have it documented to the way the board would like it documented in the employees' documentation. As far as, do you want, for example, in the past, when this has been used for temporary assignment pay, it's been included, this is what this person is doing for this. I think you have some additional considerations that open up as far as if you are giving, for example, a flat amount to everyone, all of these people are paid different amounts, which means that this additional sum would be a varying percentages of their salary. And we have some restrictions as far as if people are in their final rate of earnings for IMRF, if we can give them lump payments that exceed 1.5% of the CPI, those result in very large accelerated payments if they retire with a lump sum in their final rate of earnings that is over a certain percentage. So there's other considerations, which is why I think it's important to have some kind of compensation policy in place to simply put guidelines on it, as far as, stay between these two posts when you make these choices. I don't think any of this conversation here relates to the request that was put in front of us. It's just something that, occurred to me as we were having this discussion, is there are other considerations that come into play when you're talking about compensation.
True that.
Good point.
I mean, thank you. And Roger, again, thank you for being the poster boy for us to throw darts at, but Do you require any other guidance at this moment?
Simple yes or no.
As far as I don't,
No.
I don't believe any
Asking
question.
you, sir.
I don't believe any question got answered as far as if you would like me to pursue
I'm
a
sorry.
process or policy on it. How you want this documented, my recommendation would be a memo from the department head for the employee's file should be sufficient. And then payroll can make the changes and the department head initials off, this is what I'm doing and why. And then that would be sufficient documentation for the employee
And
file.
again, this is just conversation because this is not an agenda item. So
Correct.
there is no formal action that can be taken. Thank you, Ms. Neerman, for chiming in. I appreciate your guidance always.
Mr.
Can we do
Chairman, I
consensus?
suggest that Jamie should proceed and come up with a guideline on this matter so we can have a formal resolution or amending the policy that we have.
But in the meantime, I don't believe we're holding up anything from any other requests anyplace else.
Can we do a consensus on this?
I don't think we can do anything like that, but certainly we can, make sure that the chairman's in agreement with how we're documenting things as far as it being permitted and everything. I think we can
So is
cover that.
a Yes?
Yes.
And
Definite maybe.
Can I,
Yes.
Sure.
may I just throw in my 2
And then
cents?
Mr. Kenyon is up
Oh,
right after you. So
perfect. I look forward
know
to
what that
Mr.
means.
Kenyon's. I love
Get
that.
back on the street
So
again.
so I'll be very quick. This whole thing with the bonuses to me is a short-term fix for a sustained long-term problem. I agree with what has been said about evaluating employees' work to make sure that if they're taking on additional responsibilities and perhaps the new employees that have not been hired, the potential for those employees are no longer needed because there's competency that can be filled through efficiencies, whatever that may be with the existing employees, that should be considered. However, here's the short-term fix. We're throwing money at people, generously so, that perhaps additional compensation and salary should be included so that those individuals' job descriptions are thoroughly reviewed and they're compensated at market rate according to what the standard of their work would be and the quality of their work.
Yep.
So this to me is a continued problem that we're going to consistently have. We heard from building management already that if, I think the compensation was at the low 30s or mid 20s, those jobs are on the market forever. No one came to work. Soon as the compensation was raised to an appropriate at market rate, applicants applied and positions were being filled.
Madam Chair, we continue to grow and pivot and do what we need to. I believe the compensation study, the equity plans, the 248, everything that we're doing is moving in that direction at the appropriate pace. And I appreciate everybody's perspective that they bring to the table, and the good nature that they bring it with. Mr. Kenyon?
I'd like to move we adjourn.
Second.
No?
No, well, where's the
wait,
concession? After we put all the reports on
It's
file.
closed session.
Oh, we have that?
No. Do we have closed session minutes review?
Yeah.
Oh, you're killing me. Seriously?
Do it
Killing
next,
you.
can't we do it next month?
Oh,
She's been here for an hour. I asked you.
No.
I thought you meant you were here for the next meeting. I am so sorry.
She's, no regrets.
Before we go into closed session,
Kenyon moves to go in. Bates seconds. Any conversation?
Seconds.
Call the roll for closed session. I am I did not understand that.
he doesn't pay attention.
No.
Alan,
Alan,
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Davis,
Travis, yes.
Iqbal,
Well, yes.
Should have been over.
Yeah.
In the world.
Lewis,
I am so sorry.
Burgess.
Sturgis, yes.
Oh, relax.
Okay.
Oh, because I hate wasting.
Okay, everybody online, please accept your invite to go into the closed session. Be aware we are live streaming. And so anything that is said prior to me telling you you are in the closed session will be going out live to the public.
Let's all stretch every.
As long as, make sure we're keeping a
I don't need.
quorum. Your hands for the door. You leaving? Oh, what's the problem? You can't hang around.
No, it's.
Bill, you know we're going into close. We didn't adjourn.
You don't mind if I sit in, do you?
Of course not.
Oh, okay.
You look happy.
I thought
like
you were-
thought.
Oh, You can't leave.
You can't leave.
Matt, you have to be here. You know, we have a new type of employee.
We still have several people that have not
Don't wanna
accepted their
work.
invite to the closed session. Please go ahead and accept those invites.
We're comatose.
We're missing Deb and,
Bates, I'm in.
nope, and Anita, right? And Mark?
Okay, well, I'm gonna come back to turn this on. I think you guys need me.
Oh, you want me?
You see them on at all?
You can't do this without Mo.
But I think we have a quorum. yeah.
Otherwise, we need you desperately.
What the hell did he run off for?
Where are you going?
Get 400 people, but
Private Bates reporting for duty, sir. Yeah, we do.
well, it's part of your county board
Let us know
stuff.
when we're back so we can adjourn.
It made my minor, but it isn't.
It's duty. It's our duty.
Okay, you are back in open session.
Alan,
Alan, present.
Bates,
Bates,
Div-
present.
Davis,
Have us here.
Iqbal, Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Burgess,
Surges, yes.
Pirog, Shepro. Okay, you have a quorum.
Hey, motion to adjourn,
What, don't we have
Have a
to
second.
reports on file?
already done.
Did.
Okay, move we adjourn.
Bates, second.
I already seconded. I just went ahead of my.
Davis.
Kenyon Davis,
Is that an all in favor?
yes.
All in
Aye.
favor?